Hey artists, this is going to be a way that we can gain more confidence around using linear perspective, whether it will be 1-point perspective with a vanishing point off to one side or a vanishing point in the center, or 2-point perspective where you have multiple vanishing points. Again, you'll need a clear horizon, and you'll also have to choose a word, choose a font style, and then practice using a ruler, possibly using some printed text or other references that you can draw on top of. So first up in the instructions on your page 12 exercises, it says to choose a word, and it could be just a single word, it could be a longer phrase. I'm thinking I'm going to use Delulu, or if I had a longer version, may all your Delulu come Trululu. So I actually really loved this, which I found on Pinterest. And it's really similar to the way I might do block printing, and also to a font that I found on Creative Market. This is the font here, super mega fantastic. It's a mix of sort of this sans serif block font with like script font. So you get really cute combinations. So you could play with different fonts, possibly different colors as well. But for these exercises, we just want to keep it really simple. Okay, so step one, I've chosen my word and I've chosen my font style. I can keep this nearby as a reference. One of the things to consider too, it's like if you drew a stick man first, you would just have lines, simple lines. Then you would go over it to fill in the shapes or outlines or the thickness of the letters. Then you can color them in, clean them up, and from there we can add the depth, the shadows, the perspective, the 3D kind of look. So that is sort of one way to maybe think about this kind of a progression. It's like a 1, 2, 3 or a 4-step progression. It might help as well if you're just learning perspective, or depending how many words you have, to just start with printed images, okay? And so I'll take one from Wayne White, and this would be an example of the simplest possible route, where it's not even actually vanishing at all or much, but it is following a particular angle on the canvas. And so using our ruler, you'll probably do yours with a pencil, okay? For this, I'll use a black pen so that hopefully you can see. So if you take some examples you like, possibly from Wayne White, and you just practice finding the edge. So I'm doing the bottom of this word, the top of the word, and then also there's a certain thickness or a depth to the word, okay? Even just having consistent angles as well as consistent spacing when you do those letters is helpful. So something I want everyone to notice is every letter, even regardless of the font style, is going to basically fit inside of a similar shaped box. And on your handout, you have a little bit around that, around perspective spacing, where if your box is not flat and horizontal, but it is giving the illusion of depth, the divisions still work, but you're going to use that diagonal line across to find where the vertical lines of your letters should go. So anyway, there'll be a little bit of depth, of course, right here that we have to add in. And then if there's depth as it fades back this way, there's also going to be, okay, the same from a side view or a side angle. So if I just emphasize that, or even practice by tracing that, you notice that all the extra sort of shaded information in this example, just using the letter S here, it's all happening over on the left-hand side, and it's also coming up higher than the text. So tracing over something, putting those lines, adding those boxes will help you, even if you're someone that just wants to take your word and keep it relatively flat. Now let's look at some examples that use perspective. So this first one, okay, is going to use a a vanishing point, which often is well off of your canvas. So it'll be to one side or the other. And the first thing I would do is take our ruler, find the horizon line in the landscape, okay? So I'm going to be drawing in, I'm gonna do the lines, the perspective lines in blue for you, okay? So here's my horizon line, and I'm gonna extend that to either side of this canvas, pretty far off of the reference that I'm practicing from, okay? I also have a top line, so I just wanna line it up with how the letters are going, and I'm gonna extend all the way till it touches or crosses the horizon line. I'm gonna take my ruler one more time. I'm gonna align it at the bottom, okay? And have this come up. And then one thing to note is I actually have, as I'm extending this, I'm realizing there are a couple of vanishing points, okay? So there is a vanishing point for the top text right here. The words tell me, they're vanishing here. And then these words are actually vanishing off to a different area. Okay, in the bottom, I just need to extend to see where that's gonna eventually cross. There it is. The second line of text, you love me, has a secondary vanishing point. So now if I tried to make those just a little clearer, we've got the top part of the text is gonna kind of be within this triangle wedge, and I can start to see that and learn that. And then there's a longer, more extended triangle with this bottom wedge, and almost nothing is necessarily relating to the horizon line of the picture. These have their own vanishing points here where the horizon line is a little bit higher. But you can start to pull those long lines to help you to see where the ones closest to us, the letters are bigger, and because they stay in that generally triangular shape fading back, each next letter gets slightly smaller, and it also gets squished closer together. On the other hand, let's try one more example. I'm picking more complex ones just to sort of really get a sense for this. Again, taking our ruler, in this image, I sort of see a potential horizon line that's fairly low, okay, in the actual landscape. But there's a second horizon line here where there's like the sky meeting water. That's about here. Again, the vanishing point might be on one of these horizon lines, but it might be up higher or down lower, okay? Again, we're just working from what we see. So in these more sophisticated ones he's done, he has these concave or curved illusions. So where you're almost drawing kind of an hourglass or a curved shape. And hopefully from that curved shape that you've drawn, you're able to come in and find the middle. And the best way for that is probably just measuring, you know, the widest part of the text. So I've got about 10 inches. So we're gonna guess the middle is 5. So right about there. So in essence, what we're gonna have is that the smallest letters are centered and then they are extending out. The top line is bending upwards, curving our letters taller, upwards, following that line. Bottom ones, same thing. And then this center line of text, it does do a slight curve. Here, I'll do this in blue. I'm hoping you can see this, everybody. A slight change, but not nearly, especially as I extend this, it's not nearly as dramatic. Just sort of tracing along the top and then doing my best to extend it in a way that feels really natural. Okay, so this middle line is pretty much flat and then it starts getting wider and curves out like the rest. I might argue the vanishing point is right here. So if we made these suddenly more linear, more straight, instead of the curved effect, we used our ruler, that same sort of idea would apply, bigger to smaller. Okay, last up, things to practice now in our sketchbook. I would like to see you practice using your word, right? 1 point perspective and then 2 point perspective. Now, first, it might help to quickly go through this using simple squares or boxes, because like I pointed out, every letter can fit inside of a square or a box. Okay, so let's do an example with 1 point perspective. I'm going to put one over here. So it's a horizon line, 1 point perspective. There's only one vanishing point. That could be a little X, a little dot, whatever you want. And then from there, okay, what we can do is we could imagine, like if I want to practice the letter E or D, I might try just sort of drawing a box, a simple box shape. You could use your ruler. I draw a box above the horizon line, okay? I might practice a box that's right on the horizon line, a box or a square. Again, this is just a quick example, sorry. And then maybe one somewhere, anywhere that is below. So I'm just kind of working my way across to give room where you can see. So in 1 point perspective, you're going to sort of start with these flat boxes. You'll see where that's different in a minute in 2 point perspective, okay? And of course, within this box, we can imagine this is actually going to become the letter E for Delulu, or any letter that you wanted to practice, okay? So how does this work? How do I take this square and make it 3D using 1 point perspective? You want to take all the corner edges and using your ruler, extend back. So I'm just lining it up to the vanishing point, to the corners I can see. This last one, it disappears in behind, so we don't have to worry about it. And then from there, you can decide how thick the letters are. And so you imitate this line, you just repeat it further back in the distance. The horizontals are always horizontal, the verticals are always vertical, and then you just make sure those all connect. Now suddenly I have some depth or some dimension. So I'm going to quickly continue that with these other ones. So if it's on the horizon line, okay, and it was just a simple box, we wouldn't see a whole lot. We could decide how thick that square or that box is. I'm going to make it quite thick, and there it is. Okay, but of course I also have these edges here too, where I need to circle back to that vanishing point. So how do we do this? I'll show you in the blue. Okay, one more example. When it's below the horizon line, you're gonna, again, vertical, stay vertical, but it's between the vanishing depth of field. The horizontal is horizontal, and then we just redefine all of those. Let's pretend this is a letter D. Okay, so the D fits in here. There's that opening here. Because there's thickness on this side, it means there's going to be thickness filled in there. And that this curved edge will vanish back in place of that point. So the D might start to look something like this. You might want to grab things to shade or color with, but this is just a rough idea. And the E, I would vanish back all of these, same thing, to that vanishing point wherever it's appropriate. So for example, this little bottom edge of the E, you're going to have a little piece like right about here that shows the thickness in behind it. So 1 point perspective is kind of the simplest one. You could add boxes over here, different sizes. If it was a bunch of letters all together, you know, O, M, G, just kind of keeping in mind they're all going to vanish in that direction. And if you wanted to do more of the look that Wayne White does, he actually creates letters that are already exaggerating that. So we could have, you know, L, O, L. And you're already getting a sense that the whole thing is shrinking backwards. So there's our 1-point perspective. Now let's chat quickly about 2-point perspective, and you can go give things a try. So again, just starts with a horizon line across the page. Now for this one, there's 2 vanishing points. We want them to be as far apart as possible. Okay, so how is this going to work? Instead of drawing a flat square, okay, now in 2-point, we're going to draw just a line. So I might have a line right here. I might have one up here. I might have one that's crossing the horizon line here. Just different lines, lines in the sky, down in the ground, or breaking the horizon. Totally up to you. You might have a preference once you've done these exercises. The trick now is I'm going to take the 2 ends of the line, the bottom and the top, and I need to line up my ruler and vanish it to both vanishing points. One of them going on the right side, one of them going off to the left-hand side. So we've got this line here, it's vanishing back. Now we need to add in the thickness of the box that we envision. I'm just picking arbitrary ones. Again, a vertical line stays totally vertical. You can use your ruler for this as well. In fact, you probably should. And then you need to repeat it. The top and the bottom vanish over. Okay, if this was a see-through box, I'll just make this a dotted line. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, and then the top and the bottom on this other line vanish across. They always go across, you know, further away. And so what's happening is from ones that are, okay, you get the idea, and that would be my clear box. It's a little more sophisticated than the 1-point. When we have something below the horizon like this, I'm gonna now fill this box in a bit more clearly. What you'll notice is we see the top of the box. Just try to emphasize that. So we're gonna see the tops of your letters if you put your word down low. If you put your word on the horizon line, it'll kind of be a balance or a mix. So just to give you the idea, part of it would vanish above, part of it vanishes below, but it still is going to vanish to both sides. That line's already there. Okay, I can determine the thickness. That can just be arbitrary for your practice. When it's your word, it's going to be more so determined by the letter. What happens with this is we can't see the top or the bottom. We really want to notice the corner, okay? The corner edge of any given letter when it is above and below the horizon. And then final one, it's a little bit close over here, sorry. You want to vanish to one side, vanish to the other side. Choose your lines. And remember that these lines, they go to their opposite friends. So I'm going to take this, vanish it back. This one we wouldn't maybe even bother with, but once again, I'll make it transparent. Okay. This guy here is vanishing to the opposite. And this one we wouldn't really normally see. So I'll make mine a dotted line. Okay. To clean this box up, and just re-emphasize that something floating up in the sky, okay? Any letters above your horizon line, those letters, you're gonna see more of the bottom. And so 2-point perspective creates slightly more sophisticated ones, especially if you say had some words coming in, turning the corner, and vanishing away, which is another example that you could explore. But that's really kind of the main difference. And so I encourage you to try out both, but you're gonna wanna do that based on your word and using a pencil with a little more care and attention. All right? Helpful things for you all. They could include some of the resources on your handout. You can look online. At the back of the class, I've got this really amazing perspective book that talks a lot about, for example, the difference with all those boxes, whether you're at eye level or above or below, and then how far away, how small things get along the horizon line. So it's fairly technical. Try it out, but of course you can trust your intuition. You can go back to some designs that are a little more simple. Like I am a big fan of the angled look, so that might be a layout you love. You might want to be just putting your text in sort of a nice arc, even an arc that stays consistent. Up, down, you could do sort of that funky hourglass curve to your text, right? And again, this would all just be with flat sort of text in the mix. So you don't have to overthink it, but of course, yeah, you could also do some perspective where you have text coming in, or maybe text going out, or, you know, maybe there's kind of a mix, depending how you kind of want things to feel. All right, so good luck with your perspective exercises, thinking about your word, thinking about your fonts.